So I think a lot of times when people, well, I want you to ask yourself, when you say you want honesty in your relationships, do you want honesty or do you want comfort? Guys, what's going on? Welcome to the Bird Brain Podcast, where the goal is to rise above it all, stay elevated, create that infinity, and up your you. It's a very interesting topic, I think, for people, or it's something that I don't think we really address fully. A while ago, I had an episode about, closure and how a lot of times closure is not seeking clarity, it's almost seeking control. When we have these relationships with people and, we say, I'm just seeking closure. Why do you keep reaching out to them? Why do you keep doing this? And it's like, well, I just need closure. And sometimes it's like, I need control, right? I need to have a tether to this relationship because this person is not giving me the dynamic that I want, right? We say we want honest relationships, but we are not necessarily honest about them. And I think sometimes we stay in this space of saying, well, I don't know. That happens too. You ask a person, hey, what are your intentions in the pursuit? And this, take it off of romantic relationships. It's be any relationship. You ask a person, what are your intentions? What's your goal? And sometimes people are like, I don't know. And I challenge that, right? Because I think as adults, the thing about it is we want to be respected for our decisions. We want to be seen as able-bodied, right? We want to be seen as efficient and independent and sound and mature, right? And then when it comes to the hard honesty of how we move through life, we say, I don't know. And there's a reason for that, right? Because to say I don't know means that I can buy myself time from honesty. To say I don't know means that I don't have to make a decision that may make me look a certain way or put me in a situation that I don't desire or have a response that may be very rejection heavy or I may be perceived. So we say I don't know because ambiguity allows us to kind of hide in the gray, right? It allows us to never have to fully make a choice because that choice is now going to be attached to us in some way. It's going to showcase our needs and desires. It's going to showcase our truth. It's going to showcase our character, our value system. So a lot of times you'll hear people say, well, I don't know. It's like, you know. But I also think when it comes to clarity, we say we want clarity, but I don't think we always want clarity. We want comfort and we want control more. And that's why, we will stick it out in relationships a lot longer than we should sometimes. Because the honesty of the relationship would be that we are not supposed to be in connection. Again, any relationship doesn't just apply to romantic, but I think as a society, we put more emphasis in romantic partnerships. But it's taking place in all of our connections, right? We have this thing where it's like we say we want genuine connections, but we're not fully expressing, what we need. Because it's like, well, if I say this thing out loud, I'm going to appear needy or I'm going to feel like too much or it's too vulnerable for me to say out loud. But we always desire vulnerability from other people first. Why is that? Well, because it never requires us to do any work. It's comfortable. Okay? Me personally, there have been multiple times I've asked somebody, hey, what is your truth? What is your capacity for insert? And even in that question, there's a level of honesty that's being recognized in terms of like, maybe I noticed something. Maybe I noticed how you move. Maybe I noticed your pattern in terms of communication, whether it's hot and cold, whether it's very, very consistent, right? Very intense, very frequent. And the question comes up, what is your capacity? Right? And when we think about honesty, we always attribute it to somebody verbalizing or vocally expressing what their capacity is or saying it out loud. And that's not always the case, right? Sometimes people will respond with honesty through ambiguity. Some people will respond with honesty through avoidance, right? I think the interesting thing is when it comes to the process of confusion or I don't knows or I need time to process this. There's a difference between somebody who may need time to process something versus somebody who uses processing as a way to avoid their own accountability, their own discomfort with who they are and how they may have shown up in the relationship. Just simply being avoidant and they're overwhelmed by it. So it's like, I'm going to use this to hang out. Or it keeps the other person from making a full decision, right, outside of their convenience. And I think when we say we want honesty, we have to be willing to receive honesty. And we also have to be willing to accept our own level of honesty. Because we demand that other people be honest, but we got to ask ourselves, how do we define honest? Is it subjective or is it, an ironclad definition that we stick to? Are we always fully honest? Are we always fully honest in terms of why we continue to exist in certain relationships that may not be giving us what we desire? Are we being honest about that, or are we telling other people, well, yeah, I just love so deeply and, I'm always willing to care, I'm always willing to show up, versus saying, hey, I need to feel needed. I need to be validated. And selfishly, I do these things where I am people pleasing to get what I need from the players in my narrative, and people pleasing is in some way, shape, or form, it's passive malice, right? Because it's like, or it's manipulation. Let's use manipulation, because you're not doing things for the sake of the other person, right? You're doing things immediately to get something from the other individual. And that's not honest, right? I think in relationships, there's layers to how we involve ourselves in connections with other people, in a sense of like, when we are in relationship together, there's already a binding contract. Now, what is that contract? You look at the terms and conditions. What are the standards of this relationship? What are the expectations? It's good to have expectations because you can't be friends with everybody. You can't be in partnership with everybody. Everybody ain't for you. A lot of times people are for themselves. And sometimes you are for yourself. And there's a healthy balance in self-sufficiency and independence, but also interdependence. Okay? So when it comes down to honesty, it's always what am I pursuing? What am I desiring? And I think it's beautiful and necessary to seek connection. Like, we're humans. We are supposed to seek connection. But understanding what is connected to your desire for connection is more important, is more honest. And that's where people stop being fully honest, right? A lot of times people say they want honesty, they want harmony, right? Which is why they will exist in relationships that are dysfunctional and then start to build resentment, right? Because it almost allows me to have the upper hand. And we got to understand, resentment in itself is a silent contract, because something's not happening. When you are becoming resentful, you are building a case against a person without them knowing, and or you have communicated what your needs and feelings are. The person continues to do what they do because that's who they are. And instead of you either breaking off that relationship, instead of you having boundaries around that relationship, again, any relationship, even family, you continue to subject yourself to a dynamic that leaves you feeling empty, and then you're upset that other people aren't changing before you do. Right? So when we say we want honesty from our relationships, a lot of times we're getting a lot of honesty about ourselves. Okay? And like I said, when it comes to someone going ghost or, not responding to certain questions around honesty and clarity, that's also clarity. And before you try to reason or understand why they may be distant, it's also important to understand, well, what is my responsibility in this relationship? And am I overdoing it to compensate, to keep myself mentally and emotionally tethered to this person who has clearly shown where their value is placed in regards to this connection, right? At the end of the day, again, everybody wants to be seen as an adult until it comes time to have an adult conversation, and then they become vacant. And I think we get to realize that that is an honest version of your relationship with that person. The question now becomes, hey, can I sustain this? Right? We are always giving each other information. We are always being generous with our truth in terms of how we treat people. And even inconsistency is a form of consistency, right? If you are never sure where you stand with a person, that is probably the most honest version of your relationship. Why? Because the foundation is weak, right? Somebody is not dependable. They're not reliable. They might be a little bit more convenient focused, and you're understanding that. You are probably moving like that, right? You know, you have these touch points with people, but there's never any full commitment to that, because commitment, again, is inconvenience. And a lot of times, if you give people enough room, you get to see how they operate and when they show up and when they don't. So think about it. When it comes to honesty in your connections, are you looking for honesty or are you looking for harmony? Because those things are not the same. Some people exist very well in dysfunction and chaos because honesty, because healthy, makes them very uncomfortable. All right? So yeah, think about that. Do I want honest relationships or do I want harmonious ones? Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Take flight.